And we have arrived at the topic, and today's topic is another rumor. Jesus Christ, it is rumor fucking central today. This one is something that I was very glad to see, but I'm going to put the feelers out there already. I don't know. This seems like pie in this. This seems like something we've been hoping for a long time. But let me give you where this is from. So I got this rumor directly from Twitter, and here's what the rumor says. I'm just going to read it verbatim, okay? A new PlayStation Handheld powered by AMD is in early development. It's apparently got 12 CUs, 1.8 GHz or slower GPU to maintain compatibility with PS4 and PS5 titles. A new report has stated that Sony is actively working with AMD to create a new handheld. It will be in the same line as something like a Steam Deck. The handheld will be capable of playing PS4 games and some PS5 games with a patch, according to source Moore's Law is Dead. This is an active development, so anything can happen. The handheld is meant to be for the PS6 family of products, so it's years out. Now, first off, Phil, I think I already know the answer to this, and if you're listening to the podcast and you've been listening to us for a while, audience, you should know what we're going to think about this. But Phil, would you be excited to see a new PlayStation proper handheld come up, a la PlayStation Vita 2, or your own supposed one that you mentioned a few episodes ago on the podcast?
Yes, I would. Because every opportunity we've had to make a prediction, and we've done 95 episodes plus some supplemental bits here and there, and every time there's any opportunity to say what we possibly would want from PlayStation, it's always fallen on having a portable hardware device to be able to play our games. We got a slice of the action with PlayStation Portal. Now this handheld, you couldn't load games on. It was all about streaming games. Now, this is a step further. Now, PlayStation Portal, it's sold like hotcakes. And I know a lot of people within the community, including yourself, Davey, you boo-hooed PlayStation Portal. You absolutely hated its guts. I quote, "Phil, if you get one, when I'm over, I will break it." You were going to smash up my PlayStation Portal, weren't you? Because you hated the device. You just disliked it so much. Now, actually, I haven't been able to acquire one of these because they sold so many so quickly. And I currently have a bid out there on StockX at the moment, just in case anyone wants to sell me one for £200. But that is yet to happen. So it's on the way, but I think it's a while off. Now, I love my handhelds. Behind me is my Steam Deck. I've just bought a new Pow Kitty device because I absolutely love retro consoles. I take a handheld wherever I go. When I'm at the gym, I have a mini handheld that I play when I'm on the treadmill. When I'm walking, I'm always trying to game. But with the PlayStation, I've been dreaming for a long time that we would get a modern PlayStation Portable. And they're basically picking up on everything I'm putting down. They're talking about the PS4 games. They're talking about a PS5 game with a patch. I can take a patch. I've got great internet. Download me some patches as long as I can play the PS5 games. But they are also saying we're going to have to wait a while. I didn't think this was going to be just round the corner, but I'm glad we're getting some sprinklings. I'm glad we're getting some breadcrumbs here because we're talking about the PS6 family. And I think, if my math is right, that would be around 2028. So we're looking to the future. Maybe we'll have PlayStation VR 3 or 4D by the time that comes out as well. But I think these kind of Twitter posts, they are casting quite a large net outside the specifics of it being the AMD chipset and it being based around PS4 and PS5 games, which probably is quite obvious. If we're moving to the PS6 family, we can play our older games on the move. So very welcome news. But again, as I said, quite a large net and it's a while off, isn't it?
Yeah, it's miles off. Now, if I was Sony, right, and I was looking at the success for the PlayStation Portal, and I was listening to what the fans want, it's a fucking no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. And if you get it, I mean, Christ, if we're talking PS6 and they're doing PS4 graphics, we'll be pissed. I'm telling you now we will. It's got to run PS5 games. It has to. Like, it just has to. The Steam Deck nails it, right? Like, the Steam Deck is a great compromise. Just base it around that. Just fucking copy that and just get it out and shit it out before the end of the generation. That's what you need to do, Sony. If they wait until PS6 and they're trying to get it so that all the products kind of speak together and it works really, really well, fine. Cool. I can do with saving some money right now. I could do without having to buy this because I will buy it fucking day one, right? 100% I would. I think if they're basing it at PS4 specs, it's going to be way out of date. It has to compete with PS5. It has to. I don't know how they do that, but they got years to make it work. If the Switch 2, the rumors for that is that it's going to run PS4 level games, right? If that can do it, if Nintendo can do it, Sony can fucking make it work. I don't care if that thing weighs fucking 20 kilos. And every time you pick it up, it's like, you got to plug it in. There's a little portable generator that comes with it. I don't give a fuck. I'd be quite happy to wear a backpack to charge the fucking thing to go out because I really want that kind of portable experience.
Look at the Apple VR system that's come out at the moment. You have to have a little lead coming off into your back pocket because of the battery pack. So it's all acceptable these days, isn't it? It's a compromise, of course, but I think people are willing to accept those compromises for kind of like what they actually want, which you're right, is the PS5 level of graphics, not PS4, because we want them to move things on. And things are never, perfect with handhelds when they launch. The Steam Deck was trash when it first launched. There was very little games supported. It's only now, so many years down the line, when we're getting an OLED version, there's just more and more chat because we're at a level where it actually fully works, right? All the graphics work. You can play the more modern games on it. Okay, sometimes you do get compatibility issues between games and kind of the controller and if you're plugging in a keyboard, etc., etc. But those things on the PC side, we always accept. On the PlayStation side, probably not so much. So you'll probably grumble a little bit more, but I'm sensing that actually that compromise wouldn't be so bad if we did get the PS5 level of games.
100%. I mean, the thing about it is, Steam Deck kicks ass. It's not for me because it's too much fucking around. So they need to simplify it for this device, and that's why it kind of makes sense to come out on PS6 and to be that far out. We're talking probably 3 years away from PS6, which is quite frightening to think of. Actually, I always think like this generation's brand new, but now we're like halfway through the gen, which is just wild, isn't it? Or maybe even more so than halfway through. Who knows? I just want to play my PlayStation games on the go and not have to stream them. And I still think, even now, all you that bought a PlayStation Portal, fucking idiots, man. Like, I don't know why you want it. I've not changed
for that exact reason, bro. Just because you haven't got good internet. That's your grumble. That's a you problem. That's not a PlayStation or a Sony problem. That's a you problem.
It's like these people trying to play it on a fucking plane, right? Like, where was I the other day? Where was I out and about? I was in Mega for the Indian, and I couldn't get phone signal. Anything like
you problem.
Oh, it's just not gonna work. And all these people are buying it. They're like, oh, so I could play it on the sofa. Like, the only thing you've done, and I'm talking about the collective you now. The only thing these people have done is that they've spurred Sony up the arse to potentially make a proper handheld. And if that's the sacrifice that you all had to make by wasting your money, then thank you. I was wise enough to not buy into this. I'm not going to buy into it, but I will be there fucking day one for a PlayStation Portable 2 or a Vita 2. Fuck me, I will. Do I believe this rumor? Yes. Yes, I do. Because I think now they've seen how successful this is, and your sacrifice is for my potential gain. So thank you, every one of you mugs who bought the PlayStation Portal. Thank you so much, because you willed this into existence for me. So thank you ever so much. I believe this. Phil, do you believe this?
I love the way you've twisted this into something positive for yourself here. But I remember talking about the PlayStation Portal, and I remember saying to you guys, if this is a success, we will get the next PlayStation Vita 2. We'll get the next handheld from Sony, because all they were testing is the buy-in. All they were testing is the interest. Okay, there's people on social going, yes, I would love one. But people actually put money down for this. And it isn't great, is it? Because as you said, you need to be on great Wi-Fi or sat on the sofa. You can't be in Mega playing games, can you? You can't be holding up to try and get signal. That doesn't work, does it? No. You can't be playing your PlayStation Portal on the move unless you literally live in one of those cities that has super internet somewhere in Australia. And if you are in Australia, you'll have all the problems with none of the games bloody being available to you. So, it's a catch-22 kind of situation, really, isn't it? You either got good internet or no games, one or the two. So, but for us, right, I've got great internet at home. I would love to be sat in my bed next to my missus playing PlayStation Portal. It would be epic if I could actually get one. But this, as you said, goes a step further because I can actually play the games without streaming them. And it is a perfect solution. I just cannot wait for it to happen. If they can get it to the same sort of level Steam Deck is at now and have those PS4 games and PS5 games, I'm not so worried. I'm quite interested in playing a PS4 game on the move, but I don't want that to be the standard. The PS5 needs to be the standard with a patch. That's completely fine. And have the backwards compatibility. Yes, sir. PS4, brilliant. Bring me all those games. But PS5 needs to be the standard for this to be a success, for sure.
100%. You don't want to go 2 generations behind. That feels old then, doesn't it? Even when you think about the PlayStation Vita, right? The PlayStation Vita is playing just sub PS3 games. It wasn't far off. Like, you look at how good Killzone Mercenary looks or Uncharted Golden Abyss. They looked great. They looked like really early PS3 games. And that was fine. That was absolutely fine. But if they looked like PS2 games, nobody would have bought the Vita. And, no one fucking did. And you're all to fucking blame. All you people, right? All of you just didn't buy one. I owned 2. At one point, I had 3. So, I'm certainly not the fucking problem here. Some of you guys are, right? Some of you listening thinking, oh, but I was 10 at the time. I didn't have any money. Well, get a fucking paper round and save up. You should have fucking done it. Sure, it would have taken you 4 weeks worth of paper rounds just to afford a memory card, but that's a you problem. I was like 18, 19. I had money coming out. It was fine. I had nothing to pay for. But yeah, I digress. I think you've got to make it so it's at least 1 gen behind. Any more than that, and it starts getting ropey. Especially if we're talking like, we're talking what? It'd be like maybe 2028 at this point. Are you really going to be like looking at the PS4 library and thinking, yeah, I can't wait for that? Because you'll have such a huge backlog of PS5 games that you'll be wanting to play on your PS6. That's the reality you're in at that point.
The question here, though, we're talking about this new PlayStation Portable, right? Being able to play PS4 games and PS5 games with a patch during the PS6 generation, okay? But why doesn't the PlayStation Portal get its own games? PlayStation Vita had its own games. PlayStation PSP had its own games. I don't understand why we're just getting older games. Now, I'm happy if we're talking to the PS5 standard, yes. The graphical fidelity of the PS5, beautiful. Some ray tracing, yes, throw that in there. That would be great. But what I would want is PlayStation Portable 2 games. I don't want PS5 games. I don't really want PS4 games. I want games specifically made for this. Because otherwise, it's even more similar to the PlayStation Portal because it's the same device. You just aren't streaming them. You're just downloading them, which is kind of what we wanted anyway. But we're having to wait till 2028.
It's a hard thing, though, then, to justify, because the problem with Vita is that if it did run just PS3 games natively, I think then it would have been supported forever, right? Because then there's no extra cost associated with it. But when you're having to pull out studios to be able to make, like from the first party, to be able to make games specific for this, you're getting into the same kind of situation that you are for a VR, where you're segmenting the marketplace just that little bit more, and it becomes a lot harder to be able to justify the business decision to be able to invest games in that. Like, say, for example, PS6 comes out and is sold gangbusters like PS5, and first year it sells 12.5 million, 20 million, right, units. Do you then say, right, well, we got this device that sold 1.2 million or 5 million that we could make a game for, or we could try and make our PS6 games which are trying to sell this hardware? It's a harder thing to ask for that. It's a harder thing. And it's the same thing that the VR's in right now, in that you can't really take, like, your Naughty Dogs or your Sony Bens or any of these studios and say, yeah, make a VR only game because it sold a couple of million. Like, why would you do that when you've got something that sold 50 million that can still that's still got legs, you know? Like, that's the dichotomy that you're in at that point. So I think if it is just a case that it runs these older experiences, PS5 games are still going to be being made well into the PS6 generation, just like there's still games now that are releasing cross-gen with PS4, PS5. So I think that there still will be a fresh of brand new content coming out for it, even if they're not the newest, shiniest things.
Now, forgive me, Davey, I was smiling all through that rebuttal because I have slightly set you up on that one, because I understand your viewpoint on VR, I understand my viewpoint on VR, and you've just used my viewpoint as an argument for the solution here. So you have now become me in this argument. I completely am happy with them putting out PS5 games on a PlayStation Portable 2. The same as Steam Deck. You don't get Steam Deck specific games, you just get PC games that are playable. So I'm more than happy with that. So I have slightly set you up this, Davey, I do apologise. Playing a little bit of devil's advocate, because ultimately we just want a PlayStation Portable to be able to play the games we love. And you are completely right to segment the market, to say to our developers now, go out there and create specialised games for the PlayStation Portal, which actually can handle the PS5 games. So why not just have the PS5 games on there? Again, I did set you up this, Davey. I'll give you some chance.
I don't think you have, because I think what me and Spence have been arguing now for a little while is that we don't, and I think we all came to this a few episodes back on the podcast, is that we don't think there should be like any VR first games, that we think that they'd be better off being console and then having VR modes, like the same way that they've done with the game that can't be mentioned 4 now, in that they launch the game, it gets the most sales it possibly can, or with Gran Turismo, for one that I can actually say the name of the title, right? Gran Turismo comes out, makes a bucket ton of money on PS5, and then they think, oh, we can use this to sell our PSVR. Let's add a mode into that. And that's the way that should be. And that's the way that I think that all Sony games, or any that makes sense to be able to do it for, especially for like a first person or a racing, whatever. Like, for example, if there was a Wipeout, you release a Wipeout on PS5, few months down the road, guess what's coming to VR? Wipeout VR mode. And it's just, that's added in. And that's the way that you can double dip on that audience or give them something back and still support that hardware without the cost or the price incentive. And that's what we've been kind of arguing for now for a little while. And so it's the same kind of argument for this.
And that's the thing, and I completely agree with it. Ultimately, we just want the best experience, and we want to be able to play our games in as many places that are still PlayStation as possible. We're not getting into an Xbox conversation here with them going super multi-platform, before I say platinum, platform. But my point here is that Sony don't need to relearn lessons that they're now learning with PlayStation VR. You're correct in your standpoint now is that you want games to be on PS5 and then come to PSVR 2 as a VR option. But when that game first came out, when PSVR first came out, you had specialized games. So they don't need to relearn that mistake again now with PlayStation Portable 2. Let's get all the naming conventions right. Sony are always guilty of never supporting hardware because they've made this mistake so many times. So let's not make that mistake again. Let's have games available in as many Sony-specific places as possible, be that the PS5, the PS6, the PlayStation VR 2, and the PlayStation Portable 2. Let's just be able to play games throughout. That would be the perfect solution.
Absolutely, completely agree. Audience, I would love to know your thoughts on this. How do you feel about the fact that we may have a PlayStation Portable 2 on the horizon? Let us know. Would you like it to be the same way that me and Phil have argued here, in as much as that you release a game that's specific for PS5 and then have it available for the PlayStation Portable 2? Or would you like to have its own bespoke catalogue of games? Let us know. Write into the podcast, pswetrust@gmail.com, or hit us up on the socials when this episode goes up, and we will be certain to talk through it. And if it spins off into more conversation, we will pick it up on episode 86 in a couple of weeks' time.